Okay, welcome back to the Relationships Made Simple for Men podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Bauer. I'm a men's coach based in St. George, Utah. I run men's groups, host in-person men's retreats, and I do marriage counseling primarily with my wife, Jenny Morrow. Personally, I also consider myself a professional husband because this is what I do for work. And I take my personal work in my life very seriously. So the title makes sense to me. Today, I'm going to be talking about what to do when you feel emotionally distant from your partner. And this can really, really suck and be a drag on your energy and attention and your overall feelings of well being while you're in your home or even outside your home. This is something that just stays with you. If you're not feeling connected to your partner, and if you actually care about having connection with your partner, then this is just going to be a drag. Oftentimes, when people come in to see me or us, they say that they want to have more fun, more play, feel more connected, do things together, have good conversations, enjoy each other's company, basically feel happy and relaxed. And really, what's at the root of all of this is whether or not you feel emotionally connected. It's true that you could feel safe enough with your partner and still have a good time as friends, but that deeper, richer, more vibrant type of connection that I think people really want comes from really doing the work to feel emotionally connected. You feel like your partner's really got your back. They're curious about you. They want to understand you. They want to support you in getting what you want out of life. This is what people really want. I don't know who doesn't want that. So, first, I want to talk about how you can get back into connection with your partner if things are just a little bit off. This means that you already have a good amount of security in the relationship and stability in the relationship. You're not in the midst of some big event to which you're just in survival mode or something. I want to speak to first just the day to day. Hey, we feel disconnected. Now we feel connected. Maybe there's a disagreement. Maybe someone used a tone and we're just missing each other. And over the years, I've learned a lot of different moves that work for me and other men. It doesn't mean that Jenny and I still get into bigger disagreements, maybe once a month, where we need to go in and get some support from a therapist or a coach. We still do that, by the way. That's a part of what helps us stay connected is that we do get support. And we have throughout the course of our relationship. It's been fairly consistent. But even on just a daily basis, there's this flow that you're trying to get into. And whether we are doing two different things or away from each other for a period of time and we're coming back into reconnection, or one of us is feeling anxious. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen in the course of a day to where we're constantly reattuning to each other and then attuning and then disconnecting some. But Jenny and I have a pretty low tolerance for feeling too disconnected. So we have a lot of micro interactions that we use to help invest in our security and our feelings of love, which ultimately makes it easier for me to do these moves. And that's probably the first thing to understand is just like a bank account, if you're not making deposits on a daily basis and you see that the savings is dwindling, and then you want to infuse a bunch of money into the account all at once, that can be tough to do. Sometimes you just don't have the resources to invest in it. It's easier to slowly invest in it over time and maintain the balance than it is to draw it down to almost nothing and then try to replenish it real quick. So just like pickleball, which is my new favorite hobby, so much of this comes down to the setup. How are you setting yourself up for success? And one way to do your own self-assessment is just to think about how often you sit down with your partner and try to emotionally connect with them. How often do you appreciate them for what they're doing? How often do you smile at them? How often do you go out of your way to do something for them, to initiate a night to connect? Or for men, this gets missed a lot of times. How often are you bringing some of your own vulnerability about your life into their presence? It could look like sharing somewhere you feel sad or you feel unworthy or you feel insecure or nervous. Another thing you can do is ask for their opinion. Hey, I have this thing going on. What do you think about this? That is another way to get vulnerable, is to ask for someone's opinion about something that you're dealing with. A lot of guys that I watch, and I've caught myself doing this, is sometimes I will go into being vulnerable and then I'll actually try to fix the problem in my wife's presence and just do all that mental work here in my own space. And then it will be done. And my wife's just sitting there watching me do this. And I forget to let her into the process with me, to ask her what she's seeing in me, to ask her if she's dealt with something like this, make those connections, those touch points. We also have little rituals we do, such as in the morning when we wake up, I'll ask her about her dreams. We'll do a long hug, say good morning, and this will last anywhere from, a minute to a few minutes. And then similar thing at night. We always hug and kiss before we go to bed. We say good night, hope you sleep well. Those are little investments into the emotional connection bank. So let's say there's at least a little bit of that happening in your relationship and you're still feeling emotionally distant. What do you do? The first thing to think about is the space. How are you creating a container for connection? And what are some things that might be distracting or limit both of your abilities to be present with each other? So if you're coming in and you just want to connect with your wife and she's busy doing something and you just jump into the process, there's a good chance that you're not going to have her full attention. If she's making food or eating or doing something on the computer or her phone, that's not the way to lead into this. If you're in the midst of parenting and the kids are in the room, it might be really hard to have this type of connection because it could always get interrupted. What time of the day is it? If it's right before bed and one or both of you are feeling really tired, this might not also be the best time to have this conversation. So those are some things that you want to be thinking about. How do you set both of you up for success? Another one I'm thinking about here is even when you're driving, because it seems like you're both able to fully pay attention. Driving doesn't seem that hard. But even Jenny and I were in an experience just a couple of days ago where we were talking about something that had some energy around it and we were trying to connect over it and understand each other. And then a truck pulled out in front of us and I had to swerve. We almost got in a car accident. And in that moment, it hit me. I'm like, I need to be paying attention to the road. Like I can still talk, but I need to keep some bandwidth on the road because if I hadn't been looking over at Jen for just a split second, I might have seen that truck pulling out in front of me. And instead, it was kind of a last minute swerve. I wasn't doing anything wrong. The truck was in the wrong because it just pulled out. We were just driving. But it just goes to show that to be fully connected, we have to be able to be present and attentive and focused with each other. And the space matters. The next thing to think about is, what do you think your partner really needs in order to feel safe and connected to you? Don't just think about what you need and what you want. This needs to be integrated with what you know about your partner and how they like to connect. Do they like closeness and affection and touch? Or do they like to have a little bit more space? Do they like to be given the mic and you start off as the listener? Or do they open up more when you start with your own vulnerability and initiation and they just receive that? I'm just trying to highlight some questions that you can be asking yourself, which will grow your awareness and abilities to do this dance. Usually, if you're the one who's wanting connection, a lot of times, I think being the man in the relationship, I want to be the one that initiates the connection and provides the structure and the clarity because it shows Jenny that I care enough to think about it. She feels really cared for when I put in the effort to set up the space and initiate. And she often feels softer when I use my body language and face to communicate more softness and vulnerability, share how I'm doing, and then to turn to her and ask her questions about how she's feeling and what's going on in her world. The third thing to think about is your intention. And this is really your way of being throughout the conversation. The question that you can keep coming back to is the way that I'm being and communicating bringing me more into connection with myself and my partner? Or am I like lost in my own head or my own stories or too activated to really be here? And this is where the art of this comes in. This is a flow and a dance. When I'm really trying to connect with Jenny, I will literally say in my head, I'm going to be so focused right now. I'm just going to focus on her, and I'm going to manage some of the tangential stories in my head about my own anxieties outside the house so that I can just be here with her. I can always go back to those things later on, and they might even come up in conversation, but that initial redirection to just us, the space here, is what really helps me stay focused. And there's a direct correlation between learning how to meditate and connecting with other people. This really becomes a relational meditation. And if you're wondering what it can look and sound like when Jenny and I are trying to get into flow with each other, it's often very slow. We will use some of these presence-based access points to start that process. So we may start with acknowledging the energy we're feeling in our body, anywhere we're holding tension, what our energy level is in this moment, what emotions might be present, or what we're really wanting with this time together. So an example might be, I notice I'm feeling a little bit tired. I'm feeling tension in my back. I'm feeling some sadness and also hope. And my desire is that we can feel more connected to each other. And just take that in. Like if you were to hear that from your partner, how would that land for you? There's not really any story attached to it, despite any perceived slights or misses. I'm just staying with what's happening with me now and what I want with us. It's going to be pretty easy to respond to if your partner even has the slightest idea what you're doing, and if they can make a similar move back. And if you or your partner are kind of new to this, you at least give them a model as to what presence-centered communication can look like, because presence is really synonymous with connection. We can't be connected if we're not present. And even though during this process of connection, we might have to talk about hard things or sort through the content, I'm always trying to come back to presence. So hopefully that gives you a framework and even some steps that you can take to try to get back into connection with your partner if you're out of flow. And if there's something really radioactive in your space, or there isn't a lot of security or a lot of safety, this can be harder to do. But I think just like most things, the better you get at a specific skill, the more that it can be applied in all situations. So if you're a high conflict couple with very few skills, even some of these basic skills might not go over very well, but the more you learn and the more you practice, the more success you'll find. And it could also be true that the more you learn and grow and practice and your partner doesn't, the gap will get wider and it will highlight the gap in your abilities, and it will be harder to connect. So that's why this work is best done together, so you can stay on pace with each other. Sometimes I do work with guys who are more devoted to the work than their partner is, and they want to know what moves they can do to improve the relationship. And what I have to say is, it's just like dancing or any other tandem partner sport. As a team, you're only going to be able to go as far as the least skilled person or the slowest person. And odds are that you're probably not too far from where your partner is if you're still in a relationship with them. Some people think they've grown so much past their partners. And I'm like, hold on a second. If you're still in a relationship with this person, your skill levels are probably pretty similar, because if you really outgrow somebody, it's going to become less and less fulfilling, and you probably aren't going to stay in that relationship. If you're judging your partner and you think that you've grown way beyond them and you're turning back and judging them, odds are you're only a rung or two really above their skill level or their abilities. And it can be hard to see that. That's when we're most judgmental, is when we take those few first steps of growth and then we turn back and look at someone else or our old selves and we're really judgmental, that's part of the growth process. The more you develop emotionally and understand human behavior, a lot of those judgments start to fall away. They're still there, but you're just not as attached to them. You're not worried that you're going to get hooked into a relationship with someone who you can't set boundaries with. You feel a sense of confidence with yourself. You do feel like you have the power to change the relationships for the better, whether it means letting go of them or starting new relationships with other people. And this is romantic and platonic, and with extended family and coworkers, everybody. And you'll even begin to set your life up that way so that you don't have to stay in really stressful relationships with people that aren't growing. And anyways, that's just a little side note theory I have, philosophy. The last thing I will add is that for most people, they need training and they need support and hands-on help to be able to do some of this. Jenny and I did not get here on our own. I know for a fact that we got here through getting support and both of us doing training programs and being a part of groups and consistently setting up time to practice with each other. And now it's just habit. We pretty much do this in some form 7 days a week. And even then, I still get tripped up. My own stuff kicks my ass at times. I am not perfect, and it can still be really tough. It even happened, I think it was yesterday. We were talking through something, and I had this moment of like, oh, like I know I have to go there again. I know I have to drop the guard and get vulnerable and really dig into something that's going to be hard to acknowledge. And I don't want to be mysterious. It was really around my own control issues. Sometimes when I get anxious, I want to take control over things. In this case, it had to do with traveling back home to visit family and feeling overwhelmed with meeting everyone's needs, my parents and my wife and my own. I was just getting really rigid about it. And the way I was framing it started to sound like blame. So yeah, I had to really drop in there and acknowledge my own stuff. So I know this is hard work. You can expect that I'm doing it in my own home all the time. And the best of luck to all of you that are on this journey as well. Long-term partnership is both extremely fulfilling and challenging, just like life. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. If you want to get some more practice, if you want to be with like-minded guys who are focused on improving their relational abilities and their present skills, and who like to be real and connect, support, and challenge each other, and even meet in person in Utah once or twice a year, then you can join one of the online men's groups that I run. All the information is at www.brycebauer.com, BRYCEBAUER. And that's all I have for today. Peace.